line. Chris thought that it would be a good idea to see where we are. And then also in the meantime, the Natural Resources Overlay Working Group had a meeting and has some information to report back. Then we'll hear reports, other business, and wrap up. Possible it will be done early. Any changes to the agenda needed? Okay.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
Yes.
All right. Sorry, Tom. Thank you.
Okay, are we good? Should we start over?
Yeah, well, first I didn't have the audio on and then I didn't have the video on.
So do we need to start over or no? We haven't done anything other than review the agenda. Okay. So do we have any public comment? There are no members of the public in the room. Looks like no members of the public on the Zoom. So we will carry on. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of November 4th.
I move to approve the minutes of November 4th.
Davina, thank you. And a second.
I will second.
Chris, thank you. Any corrections or discussion of the minutes? Okay, we'll vote to approve the minutes. All those in favor, please say yes. 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 That's it. We're all done. Okay, then the next topic, I will pass it to you, Chris.
Great. So tonight we are continuing our discussion on enable housing and looking at what zoning can do in areas beyond village centers to make it easier to build housing. And this is being coupled with looking at recent work by the Conservation Commission. I've looked at forest cover and how that could be incorporated into our natural resources overlay. This is just a recap of the charge from the select board. So they gave us 9 things to look at, 8 things to look at. One of the 9 recommendations from the Affordable Housing Committee, which was updating the fee structures they have kept for themselves, and they have started working on that. The 9th one, which was removing eligibility requirements for adaptive or amending the eligibility requirements for adaptive use of existing structures, was done as part of the BMG. So that left us with 1 through 7 to continue looking at as part of this work. Tonight, there's a shift in our work plan, and we will be taking a look at what I'm recommending for further study on what to get at for the topics that were sent to the Planning Commission for the Select Board. If there's support for moving forward with this direction, I'll continue doing more research in these areas and consulting with staff on possible zoning amendments. We are talking about potential changes that really represent a meaningful shift in what Jericho zoning prioritizes and how it's currently structured. So there are some real trade-offs involved that we have yet to fully understand, and drafting the amendments are going to be pretty technical. So I will be working on that, and I will be bringing it back as soon as I can work through it. I'm hoping to have something by the December 2nd meeting, but I'm just not sure what I'm going to be able to get done by then. In terms of goals that we've defined since we've first started on working on this, there's no changes from our last meeting, and that is the same as the guidance. There hasn't been any changes since our last meeting, but we've done a lot of work in pulling this together, and I think it's a good representation of what we've agreed to in terms of a consensus. All right. So this week's reading brought us back to some fundamentals in the town plan, looking at the town plan's housing, conservation, and future land use section. I think it is a good moment to ensure our zoning work stays grounded in the community's long-term. The question on the screen acknowledges that zoning already allows small lots and density bonuses for housing, which are the crux of several topics that we're considering. And the town plan has many goals. So what factors other than housing and land conservation should we be factoring in as we are moving forward with some amendments? And I think the land use section of what gets out for read maybe it brought up some issues for us to think about. So the question is, zoning already permits housing and density bonuses in rural areas. How would expanding or modifying those allowances align with the town plan's goals, both supporting housing and conserving rural lands? and like key fiscal, environmental, land use, and infrastructure trade-offs should be considered. And I do want to thank Wendy, she's not here tonight, but she was the one that had been looking at those sections for something else and recommended that we take a look at these again.
Thoughts as people were reading through the chapters?
Well, I was struck by, as I read through them, I was thinking, oh, I kept seeing something, I would think, oh, we're working on that, or we've done that, or I thought, well, we're right on target, we're doing, a great job. And then I thought, but how much housing has increased? How much has housing increased? And so I was like, we're doing what we set out to do, but are we achieving one of the main goals that we set out to achieve? And I'm not sure we are. So it sort of, that led me to think, sort of what else could we do? And I was thinking maybe we should go all in on the encouraging development in village centers and have used the CHIP program to do a project in each village center or in a few village centers. Because it's been our vision, but we've heard a lot of feedback like, oh, where are you going to do something in Jericho Center, or where are you going to do something, can't do anything there. And so, if we really believe that we can do something, maybe we should say, this is how and this is where. So like in Jericho Center, we could figure out somebody to partner with. The fire station is complicated, we say, on the land, but to develop that property back there, do a little micro in-ground wastewater system right there, use CHIP to pay for it, and get whatever 20 units of housing you can get in there, whatever you can get in there, could be a fair amount. And then do the same thing, in other locations, so that we sort of double down on that, on both the getting more housing goal and doing development in the village centers, which we're doing in Riverside. I mean, we're working on that, but not anywhere else. And there's, a fair amount of skepticism from people in the community that further development in other village centers is possible. So maybe we should sort of double down on it and say, okay, this is how it's possible, and this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, that strip of land. Jericho Center, the railroad property, Jericho Corner,
Jericho Corners, there's the commercial district.
and then commercial district.
Which we know
There's
from our
lots.
visitor at wastewater committee meeting, who said he's, David Villeneuve has got land to do, I don't know what he said, 30,000 gallons, I don't know what it's.
To the 80,000.
It was like a big
Yeah,
number.
big
like
number,
A
yeah.
big septic capacity. It's like, okay, it's there. Let's do it.
Some of the other landowners, some likely have.
Yeah.
I was thinking about, it's not really this question, but similar to what you're saying, Chris, I was thinking about different incentives, and I did fall back on thinking about how we could use CHIP and the town partnering and using CHIP as an incentive for specific types of development that we want, and maybe the kinds of development that we want outside of village centers.
Right. If there was a specific piece of land that had great soils and could support a little micro cluster of houses, small houses, that would preserve great tract of land and could be, a shining example of what to do, then that might be also a good use of CHIP. But I just was thinking more of like, let's support the overall goal of development in the village centers, which nobody seems to think, outside of this room, seems to think is possible.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? I agree with everything that you guys have said. Is it actually possible to use CHIP outside the village centers? Or is that?
Yeah, you just have to tie it to new housing.
New housing.
It has to be
Not
infrastructure. It has to be an infrastructure project that you can show will produce new housing.
That you couldn't do without it.
Right.
You don't have.
Without
to
that
get
infrastructure, you
approved,
couldn't do
I
those
would-
access.
You have to get approved by whoever, the CHIP administrators are. I would think it's easier to get approved in a village or growth area than it is to get approved in a rural area, but
Mhm.
maybe in a rural area with like mixed goals, conservation goals.
Well, right.
fine,
I just don't want us to think like, oh, we're gonna rely on CHIP, and then we find out, oh, we're not eligible in X, Y, and Z areas. So I forgot
Yeah,
what the rules were.
yeah. I feel like I don't know the definitive answer. Do you feel like you know?
I feel confident, but that confidence could be just.
I think they're still figuring it out,
Yeah, yeah.
honestly, but I think if you had a.
It
like,
sounded
this is
like
gonna be-
they wanted all the ideas. Like
Yeah,
they
this is
wanted
gonna be a
everything.
model development for how Vermont can proceed. We're gonna solve all these problems at once.
So I guess I'm gonna push back on you a little bit and then answer the prompt that's on. And my pushback is just, is that regulatory?
When you say that,
This trying to build and village center, like is,
It's not regulatory, it's getting something done.
okay, so I agree. And in terms of enabling housing and this amendment package, I think one of the things that I had a similar experience to you, Chris, in rereading the town plan, and that I was like, we did so much work. And I'm gonna speak specifically about the housing committee. We did so much work to put in writing and in the town plan a lot of the stuff that we're talking about now. And so it feels, when I start to feel a little exasperated, Chris, I apologize. I think it's because it's like, oh, we've done this already. Like, we've identified these goals and priorities. And it was really it was a lot of the work that we, in partnership with you all on the planning commission, put into making sure that these priorities and goals were in the town plan. That foundation is there, and these conversations happened. And it was a reminder that these conversations happened with the town, with our neighbors, right? Like, it wasn't just in this room. You all did a great job of reaching out and getting engagement. And so, and then I think the parts of the town plan that I haven't spent as much time in is the conservation or stewarding. And then in the land use section, in the natural resource protection areas and in the agricultural areas. And so in looking and reading through those, it was, again, heartening to see a lot of the things that we've been talking about and that we've been prioritizing. So it clearly says incentivize clustering into areas of parcels that will have the least impact. So it's got the clustering. It's talking about looking at places that'll have little impact. There's wording in there about trying to build on the outskirts of contiguous blocks of forest, avoid intrusion and fragmentation. But there is lots of language in these sections about balancing stewarding with allowing for development, and the way that it looks like we're trying to achieve that balance is again by clustering and by targeting and being really specific about, yes, we want to build in in this big zoning district, let's say, but we want to really focus on areas that are kind of on the outskirts of contiguous forest blocks and these things, all the things that we've kind of been saying. There was some nice language in there about different things to incentivize and stewarding. They talk about tax abatement, conservation easement purchases. And yeah, so I had a similar feeling to you, Chris, and that like, oh yeah, we did a lot of this work and we are on the same page. The difference though is that like I still see a lot to do outside of village centers, that a lot of this stuff is what we're currently working on. Like we haven't checked all these boxes yet. There's still work to do, but we're grounded in really solid foundational work that's in the town plan.
I don't have anything brilliant to add to those comments, but I enjoyed reading the chapters again and had the same thoughts that, you know, we've set a good stage for ourselves. And I think our town plan is very admirable. Proud of it, so. Yeah, I think it's there, our roadmap, that's what it's for, and we have it, and so now we just have to keep looking at that roadmap.
Yeah, I felt really proud of the town plan too. It's a good read and it's got good advice and good guidance and can kind of help broker decisions. Think about, I felt also like, wow, we've done a lot, we're making a lot of progress, but I also thought like we are one little cog in a big wheel. And like Chris has said, zoning is not going to solve the shortage of housing. And so, Chris, when you're saying like, oh, we've done these things, but we haven't yet, achieved enough housing. I just was on the way here listening to Marketplace on NPR, and they were just talking about like the housing market is so frozen up and nobody's moving and the mortgage rates, and it's such a big, complicated market-based situation. And we have, for this project, since this project is like a zoning project, we have, and I think of zoning as like carrots and sticks, right? Or sticks and carrots. Probably maybe, I don't know what order it should be in. So as I was reading through the town plan, I was like, ooh, that's a carrot, or ooh, that's a stick. And similar to your thought, Chris, I was like, yeah, we really should be doubling down. But I thought about like, okay, well, we just did all this BMG stuff. And then we've got like the conservation areas at the other end of the spectrum. And so I was like, I think I haven't been paying enough attention to the village zoning district and the commercial district and the low density residential district, because that's where the town plan is instructing us to kind of like really look strategically at, as because maybe that is a reasonable place to split. Let's say we got a wastewater system in Riverside. Well, thinking ahead, where would that wastewater system be extended to? Or where can Champlain Water Service be extended? Where can the sidewalk be extended? So I started thinking less about like, okay, village center, but I started thinking about like the next 2 or 3 tiers. And then I also thought about like clustering, that how can we use carrots and sticks to really drive clustering on the edge that doesn't encroach, that doesn't fragment. So still allow housing, but not allow heartbreaking housing that fragments and encroaches. I didn't really come up with any answers, but I also, I thought like, as we work on the red line, there's good food for thought in there. And I just thought like, there's more opportunity, I think, than I had been paying enough attention to. In those other zoning districts that maybe don't need as much clustering, although they still, it's still, the land use section still wants to see clustering in like everywhere, but the pressure on there seemed like a little bit more flexibility.
But plenty of the low density residential would still want to be clustered.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of that.
yeah,
Yeah, I guess my reaction was more, okay, as we bump up against the limits of zoning, what else can we do?
right,
As a community, not as a planning commission, but as a community,
right.
what
Well,
else can we do?
so-
And so,
in the getting it done, the next, and we've talked about this a little bit before, like, I agree, I've walked around the village centers and I walked Route 15 not that long ago, and I was like, there's a ton of space here. And it's like, is the holdup septic wastewater? Is that solely what it is? Then I agree with you, then where else could Chip add smaller systems that aren't gonna take, $20 million and 15 years to build, like, because the Affordable Housing Committee found lots of neighborhoods have shared systems. So 20 houses on a shared system, could Chip do a good job of that in a good location, like in one of those residential infill areas?
my only hesitation is, what appetite the town as a whole has
I was just gonna say,
for,
well, I think that
development.
one of our next jobs, or maybe not our job, but setting the stage and encouraging somebody to do this job of getting buy-in and showing people what's possible and showing people that what happens in their neighborhood will benefit them directly, even if it's not on their property. And just really hype up the benefits to the town as a whole. From encouraging was kind of what we're talking about, because if that, like Chris said, I think that's kind of still a little bit.
And a chip project can be small, and it doesn't necessarily require much capital for the town. The town has to sign off.
Right,
The town has to be an active participant, but it doesn't necessarily mean a lot of money on the town's part.
Oh, and I'm actually talking about also just like, the residents, like, I don't know which, if it was one of these an article that you sent us or something, but where they were talking about, surveys where people were asked, like, do you support more housing? And they were like, yes. Do you support more housing in your town? Yes. And then it was like, do you support more housing in your neighborhood? No.
right.
Right? So how do we move that needle? Again, just to show that it's not the big bad bear, it's a good thing. When it's done, when we set it up to be done well. That it's not gonna be a free-for-all, we're putting things in place to make it palatable and fit within our collective goals.
Well, little small pocket communities would be probably more palatable to everybody than, a 4-story building and the other side or something, but, the other takeaway I had was, there was a section there about, encouraging or assisting the townspeople to understand what opportunities they might have on their property. And I was thinking, I don't know if we've done enough with that.
No, like I look at every house on Route 15 and think like, could it be a duplex? Could it be
Well,
a
if you
quad?
think about how many bedrooms are empty in Jericho,
Right.
it's a ton.
Right,
And so I think that, having the town somehow play an active role in helping people through workshops or whatever, or consultations or whatever, say, this is what you could do. Might gain a lot of, not new buildings, but new bedrooms being used.
right.
Yeah, like on the home share thing.
Yeah, so if three people figured out a way to do a home share, then they turned around and sold their houses, some of them, then, that would open up
Right.
houses.
Right.
Anyway, I just don't.
Golden Girls.
Or giving people guidance too on like, it's a little bit, not everyone really wants to be a landlord, and it's a little bit scary. And
Yeah,
so giving people
Mhm.
like guidance
Yeah.
on what that means actually and
Right.
what you can do to make it.
so it's, right, and maybe with real world examples, like,
Right.
This person did it, and,
Right,
This is all the
and here's
benefits.
the things that you really, this
Right.
is what you,
right,
cause what you don't know sometimes is very
Yeah.
scary.
yes. And I still think if there was a way to get someone's house rescheduled from a 4-bedroom to a 3-bedroom, it would open up the possibility of doing an ADU. So if you remove a closet from a room, I just don't know what the logistics are of getting that reclassified. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I also, maybe you found this out when you were doing your septic. When you add a dwelling, even if it's
It's
a one
not-
bedroom,
it's not-
it's still 2 bedroom. They count.
I know it's not
It's the
always
equivalent of
1-to-1,
2 bedrooms, but yeah,
but still, there might be room to work there.
yeah. And it seems like the math now is not quite as black and white in a good way
Mhm.
on the flows. Like they used to just have a linear, like every bedroom
Mhm.
required X thousands, but now it's diminishing. So that the third bedroom doesn't take up as much as the first. So the math is different now than it was 20 years ago. Right, so is it, like, you could even analyze like every wastewater permit and see how it matches up with the Lister card for the
Mhm.
property. And if you were to if one were to redo the map today, does that property have
Right,
capacity?
right. Right.
I mean, for somebody to convert from 4 to 3 plus an ADU, they'd probably want to do the math, like, is their tax bill gonna go up? Which is a
Sure.
policy decision.
Ssure.
Right? The
Yeah,
town could make a
right.
policy decision, or is their resale value better or worse?
And then is the ADU and Airbnb.
Right,
That doesn't help the town.
right.
Um, Yeah.
Well, if somebody can afford their house better, though, if they have an income stream,
Sure,
not permanent housing, but.
right.
And some ADUs are used for long-term rentals for seasonal. employees.
Sure, yeah.
Did I send you that article from the New York Times about the towns in Massachusetts?
Yeah,
Who were using old.
I saw that
hotels?
article.
Yeah, for seasonal.
For seasonal,
employees.
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, like, I've often wondered if there was an opportunity to partner like with Smuggler's Notch, because we're sort of like the base camp.
For Veda. Like,
Yeah.
for goodness sake.
Yeah, no,
He lived
they
in Jericho. I mean,
right,
like, they're exploding.
right,
There's no way they don't need housing. There's
No.
no way.
right.
So he should be our chip partner. Let's do a beta housing prototype in the commercial district and.
So thanks, Chris, for giving us provocative,
Mhm.
thought-provoking reading.
It's.
This was my favorite reading that you've assigned so far.
Read.
Thank
It was
Wendy.
very, very close to home.
Great.
Good.
All right, Okay, so our work tonight focuses on what I pulled together as recommendations to continue working on that are based on our previous discussions here and then research that we've reviewed. I'd like to get confirmation that it's moving in the right direction. And then before I get into that, I'll give an update on the natural resource overlay brief and what the discussion that we had last week. And I think Tom Barabal was gonna try and join us. He said it was gonna log on at 8:30, so maybe 7:30, so maybe it's still logging. All right, so last week, a working group that included Susan, Sabina, Tom, and myself, we met with Taylor Newton from CCRPC, Jens Hawkins Hilke, who's a conservation planner with the Vermont Fish and Wildlife, and Aaron Worthley, who's with Aero Environmental, the firm that did the field work for the Conservation Commission, looking at the forest blocks. At the meeting, we discussed our current natural resource overlay, how it identifies specific natural resources, how it designates them as primary, secondary conservation areas, and then defining the standards that we use when we're reviewing development on projects where those resources are present. We also reviewed the results of the recent forest block survey and the research on past projects within the NRO and the PUDs that we've reviewed here at the Planning Commission. So our experts in the room, they shared their thoughts on how to best incorporate forest blocks into our regulations using the current structure that we've got. And then based on that discussion, the working group hung out a little longer, and we developed this list of next steps to consider for the NRO update. So some of this is consistent with what we've already talked about before, but I think it drills down a little more deeper. So it includes adding new forest blocks and designating them in tiers, but making sure that it's prioritizing their role in supporting wildlife habitat. And then this would be formed by using block corridors and linkage pathways that are identified in the forest block assessment. And I'll tell you what that means. So the image on the screen here, the green areas, those are the forest blocks. And then the important connections between them are the linkage pathways. Those are those bright pink lines. And then the block corridors, those are those multicolored areas. These are the wildlife connections between the forest blocks that are really critical to them functioning for wildlife.
Which one of those is a linkage pathway? I could.
Okay, so
Yeah,
the thing that looks like pink lighting is the linkage pathway, and then everything else is.
So sometimes it's also a corridor,
it will have like a buffer around it.
which is the corridor.
Correct, those colors, the brighter colors.
I see. So in that case, is the yellow the most important and the corridor?
The darker is more important.
Oh, okay.
So, you can see this line here, this little pink line.
Yeah.
That's the linkage pathway.
Yep.
And then the block to block corridor is all of this. But there are gradations of importance as you move out from that middle.
Well, so the middle is not the most important.
No, well, it's all important,
Okay.
right? They're just,
Okay.
it's
So in
showing.
that example, then why isn't it just shown as a block to block corridor? I'm just trying to understand what the importance of the linkage pathway is where it is combined with the corridor.
I don't, do you know, Sabina, I'm trying to remember if the website that has, with the layer has descriptions of what those different colors in the block to block corridor means.
I don't have good, I don't, yeah.
So within that
I could
corridor,
get it, I could get you that information, but I'll have it right in a second.
but is the idea that within that corridor, there might be places that would be better to develop than others, or places that would be more important to preserve?
The corridors that are shown here are like the most, are
You just can't do anything in the corridor.
Correct.
And the basic idea is that even if you do everything perfect in the forest block and you create this pristine
It needs to be
forest,
connected.
it needs to be
Yeah,
connected.
right, right.
And so if you cut it, like, if you
Okay.
cut it off, then you
Right.
pretty much minimized all the good work you did in the forest and so.
And one interesting thing that came out of the discussion, because we were talking about having different tiers of the forest blocks. And they were saying, like really looking at the linkage pathways and the forest block corridors. Just to help us figure out where they are connecting to the forest blocks are like the most important part of the forest blocks. And if I didn't include it, but if you can think back to the overlay, the natural resource overlay, right now the wildlife corridors are these really big pink blobs that cover like all of Jericho Center, right? So that's actually why I used this as the example, because right now that wildlife corridor consumes all of that village center. And that was based on the data that we had at the time that the NRO was being developed. This forest block data drills down and gives us much more specific wildlife corridors that we can look at as part of the forest block NRO update, and maybe we can narrow. That's not the right word.
No, it's okay.
We can more focus where those wildlife corridors are. So it's much more targeted in where we
More
are.
granular.
Yeah, and where we are enforcing our standards for the connectors.
I think Jens's philosophy was it's better to have fewer very important places
Yeah,
than
right,
to have
right.
a multitude of important
yeah.
places, and then that kind of just diminishes the whole thing. But if you really key in on making them really, really, really special.
And they said some things which I think like I knew intuitively, but having them say it was sort of like, oh yeah, it's like looking at the natural resource overlay really as a whole connected system and how all the pieces fit together. And that's where I think the whole working group felt like once we get this piece added, the forest light's really going to help connect a lot of those resources that are on the map now.
Just, do wildlife patterns change? Like with this, the way that the important corridors now, would that necessarily be the same 10 years from now? Does anybody know?
Well, I think probably the answer to your first part of the question is yes, right? Because there's probably going to be different,
Food sources or whatever.
yeah, different. Well, I mean, I guess the idea is to maintain the pattern in a steady way as long as possible. But and to make it, I think a lot of the conservation talks that I go to are talking about basically like setting the foundation and making that really, really strong so that no matter what species are coming in and out of the picture, it will support the broadest things, or even like with climate change, right? We might have different tree species that move up from the south, but if we have a good solid foundation in terms of, the soils and the bedrock and all that, then it's gonna still be hospitable to something. It might just be a different something. So it might be an oak instead of a sugar maple or something like that,
They did say that there's certain like human activity that will diminish the function of the area eventually. So like, sure, the wildlife can potentially adapt, like you can't go over it, you gotta go around it, you can't go, the little kid thing. But if you break a linkage, then they're like literally dead in the water and aren't mating and reproducing. Then eventually that area will become barren. That's how they'll adapt.
And it's different, right? For a salamander, the distance that where that linkage gets
Yeah,
broken
right,
is so
right.
much smaller than
Right.
for a moose
Right, or a bear.
or bear.
Yeah.
So it's complex
Yeah.
and complicated.
They also said things that reinforced, like our cluster, like if you're gonna do more housing, like denser and more clustered is better than,
Right.
yeah.
Right, like chopping it all up, kind of like we saw in the slides about conservation design, was worse. And they did say some things that were almost counterintuitive, where like nibbling at the edge of a really big forest block is probably going to be less risky to that forest block because it has hundreds of acres or whatever, dozens of acres that can absorb that little nibble at the edge. If you slice it and dice it, forget about it. It's not a forest block anymore. It's just a wooded neighborhood. But the ones that you look at on the map and you're like, oh, it's already a goner, but it still has some function, in many ways is the most important one to protect. Because it needs our help that much more. Smart planning and smart, diverting.
Do we know where those are?
From what-
It's mostly on the west side, like our best forest blocks are in the east and to the south.
Yeah, like the range and down.
And it's the ones to the, I always get my directions here, to the west, almost all, but more of the northwest corner. Where the colors on their maps are lighter in terms of integrity, but those are like the most threatened and the ones that need the most protection.
So that's kind of the work that we have to do, is to take the different criteria, like where is it located? How does it relate to the future land use map? How big is it? Where did it rank in the Arrowwood ranking? How fragmented is it already? How is it close to other development? And use all of that kind of like fuzzy logic more. It's not a straight shot to figure out which one should be primary, secondary, and so on.
And how does this granularity relate or not to the future land use map? This is probably more, I would assume this is more sophisticated.
Yeah, well,
assessment.
CRPC had the forest blocks information, the Arrowwood information when they were working with us on the future land use map. But we knew at the time that we were gonna update the natural resources overlay. So it influenced it, but I think this is more granular.
Right.
DCRPC was like, they were looking at the whole
Right.
region and they kept saying to us, we can't micromanage a parcel by parcel future land use map. That's kind of the next step that the NRO should be able to
Oh,
do.
you mean the most recent work on the future?
Mhm.
Okay, yeah. Because it came up in our working group that CCRPC was asking us to give them the layers from this to
Mhm.
include in their data set, so we can overlay it with future land use map and zoning and other things.
So that would be really helpful.
David White had it when he worked on the future land use map with us in the town plan, and the forest block are the map, the Arrowwood map is in the town plan. Also, so it's all there, we just have to synthesize it now.
And how this
And
is
make decisions, sorry.
dovetailing well with the housing work is that as we are looking at ways to make it easier to do types of housing out in those areas, this will make sure that housing, this will give us some confidence or some comfort in knowing that housing is going in areas that are going to still maintain the integrity of our natural resources. So, I mean, I mentioned a little bit about the tiers because we'll need to come up with hopefully maybe 2, but maybe 3 tiers. And then develop standards and guidelines for each of those tiers. They also said that the guidelines that we have for forest blocks now are fine, but we'll still want to take a look at them, and there might be more detail we can get into that's more nuanced based on what the tiers are protecting, if that makes sense.
Well, because right now, we don't have anything that protects the critical block corridor.
The wildlife corridor, we do have standards for wildlife corridors right now.
But there's nothing that says no, right? I mean, the only thing that says no, unless I'm mistaken, is the highest level, the little vernal pond or
You're
whatever.
right, yeah,
That's the only hard no.
yeah.
The wildlife corridor guidelines are the most lenient, and the most strict requirement is that is about fences, making sure that you have porous fences.
But this new information might change that. Maybe.
I think the answers are just not, we were looking for like a one set, like insert this here, insert this there, and boom, 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 you're done. And I think we're really gonna have to go through and look at every single section. And maybe two things that are right next to each other will have different standards, because,
Well, just
Of
looks on that
that.
map, like there's a couple of places where there's like a little skinny red
right,
path,
so
and then there's
maybe,
nothing. And so if you lose that,
Right,
exactly,
it's all
so.
over. So that should be a hard no, or
right.
anyway.
So that might go into one tier
Yeah.
instead of the other,
Right.
even though the big picture would say that it's all the same. We're saying, no, we're gonna dial down.
Yeah, I want to rephrase what you said, because you were like, we're gonna look at everything, and I don't think we're gonna look at everything.
It's like, oh my God.
Well, you know what I meant.
But we're gonna drill down, like, looking at the forest block stuff, and we're also gonna add.
I meant within our.
Yeah.
Within our.
All right.
Told you, I always say the wrong thing at the.
No, it was the right thing, the right thing. So other standards that came out of the discussion for us to look at, this was also interesting, making it easier to permit some development if certain criteria is met, such as like if you set aside X amount of open space or have shorter roads, maybe that's an easier by right permit to doing something, have an incentive for that. Requiring building envelopes being recorded as part of reviews, so maybe on the deed or a plan or something like that. Establishing existing forest widths of undisturbed natural vegetation. I know, Serena, you were saying that related specifically to both sides of a road, but I mean, I also heard it as just in general, what's a minimum forest width anywhere? And they gave a dimension of 700 feet. I know it's
Specifically with the roads.
It was specifically for the roads, okay.
Yeah, because the way wildlife moves, they're going through forest cover, right? So when I did the work where I redrew the wildlife crossings, I actually turned on the layer that had the forest, the mapped forest, and everywhere where there was trees along the road stayed wildlife crossing, and everywhere where there were no trees, I'm literally looking at the map, it got erased as wildlife crossing. So I went through and just like clicked along the borders of the forest and made a new shape file. So it's because we know that wildlife uses the forest cover to get to the road, and then they want it to be on the other side of the road as well. So that's what makes it enticing, and they feel safer that way. So that's why they're saying
Got it.
you have to have this 700-foot buffer to allow the biggest number of it's like it takes into account their all of their needs to get across through.
It's tricky from a zoning point of view, though, just because the property on the other side of the road is a different property. So we'll have to think through, like, we try to manage that
Right, and well,
by having the broadest forested frontage.
and it was there's Tom. It was within the forest block,
Okay, I see, yeah.
so not everywhere. It was in the block. You have to have this much where the road goes through. You have to keep a width of this much. So almost if you think about these little skinny things, right? It's like I don't know, that illustration from the Shelburne, regs was, cause I said to Chris, like, I don't understand what this means. And then once I saw the picture, I was like, oh, of course.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's the rationale.
So Tom, I know you just joined us. We are just finishing up our discussion of the Natural Resource Overlay Working Group. And I don't know if you wanted to just say anything about how you thought the meeting went. I thought it was a good meeting.
Yeah, it's great.
Not to put you on the spot, you don't have to. And maybe you've already logged off.
Yeah, he's there. Set the unmute. Oh, what? I'm unmuting you, Tom. Sorry. Tight security here.
Yeah, no, that's good. You never know who's gonna drop in. No,
Yeah, Tom, did you want to say anything about our meeting last week?
well, I think we had a panel of experts assisting us with what to prioritize. And Aaron's mapping will really help us to fold in the recommendations that Jens had as far as which areas are at risk of having habitat and connectivity eroded, and which ones are worth pursuing as far as maintaining corridor connectivity. So we'll meet again tomorrow to hash out some of those nuts and bolts. And I appreciate the Planning Commission taking up this complex matter at this point.
Thanks, Tom. I don't think we need to, I think we've had a good discussion unless there are any last comments on. Great. Right, okay, so next for discussion is my recommended direction for looking at possible zoning amendments. Based on my research, our timeline, and what we've learned so far and discussed. This table includes the 7 topics from the select board that we've been focused on. It does not include updating the fee structure. I think I mentioned this before, and it does not include the adaptive use for existing structures. I'll just go down this list. So based on the first one, for permitting fourplexes in all residential zones and removing regulatory restrictions, I'm recommending that we go ahead and we add fourplexes as permitted uses in LDR are at the legacy residential, rural ag residential, and forestry districts. I'm not recommending that we include buildings more than with 5 units or more. When we mentioned this yesterday with the natural resource guys, they didn't blink when we said that we were considering doing this. They just sort of were like, yeah, okay. That was my impression. Or reducing or eliminating lot sizes. So I'm recommending further evaluation of separating density from lot sizes and see what options that opens up. We need to better understand how Heinsberg works, and I think that can open up a lot of possibilities for a number of these things. Reducing the minimum lot size, reducing the frontage requirements. I think a lot of the dimensions, the large dimensional requirements for lots, gets much easier to deal with if we start allowing smaller lots, if we can just figure out the density part of that.
I mean, in the village center, in a village center, is there a density that would be too much?
We have no density caps in village centers. This is the village, this is the village district.
Oh, so we're on number 3.
Yeah, that was so that's why on the chart it says partially implemented, because we did that just in the BMG for the other village centers. It was already that way in Riverside in the form-based code.
Right.
So the BMG eliminated minimum lot size and eliminated, therefore, it eliminated density caps in all the 3 village centers, yeah.
Now we're talking about the village districts.
Right. So it's partial, so now,
Okay, so say a question.
so the question is then, is there any density in the village district that, say your question again?
Why do we care about density in the village district? Another way of asking the question. Is there a density that we're concerned we're gonna all of a sudden it's gonna be too dense? I mean, it has to, whatever requirements it has to meet firefighting and all that, but is there like
The density in the Riverside neighborhood district? Is that the same as Village Center, that there is no density cap?
correct?
Well, then I'll. Chris's
Really doing away with density in village district.
question.
I mean, it's not like all of a sudden tomorrow there's gonna be
Right.
500 new buildings. I
Right,
mean.
That would be like your best Christmas ever.
Well, I mean, really, I mean, so, and given, just, I guess. The reality of, private land ownership and such is that, you know. I doubt that we would see a dramatic change, but is there a density we can imagine that would be too much in a village district? I'm not sure that there is, I mean.
probably want to look at the map a little bit to think about it, but I mean, one of the underlying premises of the density in the first place was for adequate like wastewater. So I think without wastewater,
Well, that needs to be solved.
right, so I was gonna say there's like a natural constraint. Regardless, like you could say no density, but because there's no public wastewater system, then individual lots would have to figure it out for themselves. And that in and of itself is like a natural constraint. So it's constraint, doesn't have to be constrained by zoning. The other is like the pattern, like how, let's say there was a parcel and it would support, it would support some sort of shared system that could support X number of units on that property. Is that disrupting the pattern? I'm not arguing, I'm just saying, this is what I learned about
Build it.
planning, right? And then, so is it the pattern? And then the last principle is really, is it incremental? Like that it's not a shock to the system, sort of a shock to the neighborhood, a shock
Well,
to,
With all
So-
due respect to the neighborhoods of Jericho, like, we need a shot. I mean,
I don't know, I mean,
we need, well,
I think
think-
that there's a risk of,
okay, but,
anger and backlash.
okay, but
that-
nobody's gonna build Trump Tower in.
So
Village
let me,
district, but,
go ahead.
well, no, but again, it's my point earlier, is if we look, if the idea is to focus growth in the village centers and the village districts, why are we doing anything that gets in the way of that?
Good question.
So the village and the commercial district currently have a minimum lot size of 1 acre. That is big.
It's huge.
We also have, one of the things that I was kind of surprised by, I didn't remember in the town plan, was focusing on types and scale rather than on density. Which is, we're kind of talking about in terms of fourplexes. There's a distinction between, what did he call it? Village scale and house scale. And so again, thinking about, I know we're excited about the Heinsberg example, but there are other ways to think about density. and in particular with village and commercial, that I think, again, when we're talking about types and scale, that speaks to some of the incremental and whatever that you're talking about, but also I think allows for a big increase in density like you're talking about.
That's what, that speaks to the argument for having form-based code in all the village centers and the village districts. Because the form-based code could address scale.
And the commercial district.
That's why I think if you used form-based code, you could do a great dense little built collection of units on Plains Road. Would be fit in just fine, but could be
Plains
very
Road is
dense.
Village Center,
No, I know,
So-
but I'm just
but
saying
yeah.
as an example of
right?
the benefit of form-based code.
So I think, you were talking about doing away with density in village centers, and I think the way, at least it's.
Village.
In villages, yeah. And the way that we're getting at that, at least I am recommending getting at that, is number 6. Which is putting incentives in place to get the smaller lot size and clustering, not just in the village center, but in all of the zones. And they could be tailored for different zones.
Yeah, that's not
It's
same.
it's not the same, but it's how I was getting at trying to get more dense development in those zones that are outside the village centers. But this is for discussion.
In every PUD, you have to set aside open space.
Correct, and so right, it's
And
20
then you have to have some kind of management plan to oversee that open space. That open space is in perpetuity, like, there is a burden to the PUD. That doesn't just like, getting
Yeah,
back to the
exactly.
question that you asked me before we started the meeting about, well, if you've got a PUD, then you can put another building on a lot, it doesn't matter, but it does. Like, there are a lot of things that you have to do for it.
What's the lot size, and if you have the regulations open right there,
do.
what is the PUD lot size in the village district?
25, I think.
In
Was it-
village and commercial, it's 0.25.
So a quarter acre,
And then you've got to set aside
25%, isn't it? I think in the village it's 25%, and it's the language is sort of assuming less about like open space, especially honestly, if you had a big parcel, sure, maybe, but if you had a small parcel, it could be a playground. It could be a community garden. So I think the burden is commensurate with the location of the parcel. Because each district's open space purpose in the PUD is different. And the size of the open space would be different. So if you had like a 3-acre parcel in the village district, say, and you did, assuming no changes, you did.
Why do I have to put a playground on my lot just to build myself a
Right.
house?
Mhm.
Right.
Like, what? Sorry.
No, that's a good point. That's where like it's like an unintended consequence.
I feel like we've derailed your. Do you want to keep? And then
No,
we
this
can
is
continue
this is
the
actually
structure?
what I
Okay, great.
anticipated, right? Because this is the first time it's sort of like, okay, this is the direction I'm gonna go.
Right.
And there's been lots of discussion, but when I would sort of put these out there before, everyone around the table wasn't like, oh yeah, let's do that, right? It was sort of like, yeah, so I expect there to be some discussion about these.
In the next iteration, can we include commercial district? I understand that there's.
That I didn't include it was.
Well, and you didn't because you were taking the language from the housing recommendations and that didn't include the commercial district. And I think that was an oversight on our part. But
Which one are you talking
I
about
think,
specifically?
I think anytime we're talking about the village district, we should consider the commercial district. The same conversation we're having around a village district, we should consider for the commercial district. And so I'm talking about density, I'm talking about,
You're talking about 6 and 7.
I'm about 3,
But let's be really clear about the language because
4.
Oh,
there's a difference between the village center and the village district.
I'm not talking about village center, I'm talking about the village district.
But I would compare the commercial district to a village center in terms of density.
Well, that's a great conversation.
And that's how, I guess I.
It's true, it's a mixed use.
so I think the commercial district is a whole discussion in and of itself.
It is, and we have to be really careful with the language just because it's not a designated village center. But in my mind, at least, when I think of the density there, I would be fine with it having the density of a village center.
Okay.
Personally,
So right now, in terms of building type, you can, up to a 10+ unit is permitted in the commercial district. And the minimum lot is an acre, that goes down to 0.25 in the PUD, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty.
so it,
But
Pretty
the
dense.
density is
Yeah.
4 units per 1 acre. Unless you do a PUD.
Thanks, I guess the density question. Let's see, yeah. Yeah, look, because the commercial district is identified as a growth area on the future land use map. So that could,
Is it a growth area? In the CCRPC future land use?
well, it's orange.
Should transition.
It's a
area.
transition.
In our, I think in the town plan, all the text that talks about the growth area, it's included.
Yeah.
And that was part of why we were
CCRPC is
arguing a little
transition.
bit with CCRPC.
Yeah,
we'll dump some chip money. in
But
there.
maybe that's part of the transition is
Chip merge.
helping it transition by potentially reducing its minimum lot sizes. So Chris, when you say evaluate separating density from lot size, right? Okay, so SJ or Chris, when you guys say like, okay, an acre is pretty big. And you're thinking like if it were a half acre or a quarter acre, then you would, in your mind, then you have 4 houses on 1 acre instead of 1 house on 1 acre, just to keep it super simple.
Yes,
So if you, and I think this is where you were going, if you reduced the lot size and didn't change your density formula, that would still, in your mind, be a win.
yes. I don't see why we'd have to have such big lots in the village districts.
so I'm just gonna make sure I heard that right. Still maintain the allocating density per lot. But make the lots smaller. In where we want housing to go, which would be village, commercial, low density residential.
Yes, but I don't know that we would necessarily treat low density residential the same as village district.
Right, I think of
I
them
see.
as kind of a range.
Right, I'm not saying make them all 0.25 acres, but
Sure.
take
yes.
that approach
But
for those districts.
if we eliminated lot sizes, we have eliminated them in the village center. If we eliminate them in village district, how is the density ruled then?
I mean,
We would have Well,
That's a different,
piece.
I don't know, I haven't thought about that. I haven't thought about eliminating density in the village district. Then what
He
would
said
the,
eliminating
Lot size.
minimum lot size.
oh, eliminating, which would eliminate density?
Currently, because that's how it's currently structured.
Yeah,
We'd have to have a different, we would definitely need to switch to a different density formula in that case.
Which would, like, just remind me, say, imagine I've forgotten. How is density handled in Jericho Center right now?
There is,
There's no density at all.
it's based on building envelope. Setbacks and building height.
Lot
That
coverage.
lot coverage, that's gonna dictate,
It's all the dimensional standards.
yeah, it's just
Right.
dimensional standards is dictating.
I guess my question then is, why not do that in the village district?
Yeah, we'd have to.
We have height limits already.
Yeah. I mean, that's consistent with the regional plan. Consistent with our, I'd have to look at
Consistent
that,
with the town plan.
I'd have to. I wanna go back and just double
Sure.
check in the town plan and make sure it's consistent with that. Cause there is a differentiation between,
focus
so
on
then what,
types and scale rather than density.
so then what differentiates the village center from the village district?
On the sidewalk is. I mean,
The dimensional standards.
But they're described as differently in the town plan and they're described as differently in zoning, so. I would be reluctant to do away with lot size and,
The distinction.
yeah,
Yeah, I kind of. Harder to get my mind around that than it is getting my mind around maybe the lot size is too big. Number one, and SJ's point, maybe in certain situations, you could use some of the things that the PUD incentives are encouraging, but without requiring a PUD.
if we had, now, it's the form-based code advocate, if we had form-based code in village centers and village districts, we could have different sizes allowed of the building massing in the two different districts, two different areas, without worrying about lot size. So down the road, that could be a way to address this. But as a first step, we could certainly look at, I would hope we would look at reducing lot sizes dramatically in the village district.
from an acre.
Yeah,
I know why we did it. I was there for those conversations. With density being 4 unit per minimum lot. The spirit of that density conversation was permitting, all permitted uses on a minimum lot. And your point about the commercial district having, permitted 5 to 9 units, even 10 plus units. Makes me think about that. Too. So if you wanted to have a 6 unit building, you'd need a minimum, you need 2 minimum lot sizes, even though that's a permitted use.
I think another factor to keep in mind is there are existing neighborhoods in these zones. And thinking about how new development is gonna impact those neighborhoods.
but I think the reality is that given land ownership and existing lot sizes, I don't think there's gonna be a dramatic opportunity for some enormous thing. I mean,
I don't think it
Famous
needs,
last word.
Yeah.
I don't think it needs to be enormous to cause. It's changed, it will
Yes.
bring about change and incremental change. There's something to be said for incremental change and moving in that direction.
Right. Cause we don't wanna derail, I mean, we have like a 10, 15, 20-year plan here.
Yeah, I don't think I've proposed anything that's quite so radical, but it's okay, so we could start with reducing lot sizes. Okay.
But I just keep coming back to, because it speaks to what you're saying, thinking about these things in terms of scale. And type. Makes sense to me.
Well, that's form-based code. I mean,
I'm gonna get you an FBC sweatshirt too.
Well, so
I
like
mean,
in
you're
the,
right.
in the, say like in the commercial district, if you had smaller minimum lots, like a half acre, say, which is basically doubling what it is now. But, so if you wanted to build lots of smaller houses, that seems like that would be of that scale. If you wanted to build a 12-unit building, because that's it's naturally a bigger structure, and you have lot coverage, you still have lot coverage dimensions to consider, that will drive you to like a larger parcel. So to me, the scale kind of flexes a little bit naturally.
Yeah.
So
But-
I will worry a little bit less about it.
well, yes, but with no form-based code, you know, you would get some of those task corners, the bad task corners buildings.
Right. But we would
Next
get,
to your little,
right, but we can get that now.
yes, right,
So this wouldn't be making that more a higher risk. If we
No.
reduce the minimum lot size, does it increase the risk of that happening? I don't think so.
probably not.
What are the other dimensions for?
So what are I thought David did this survey around dimensional standards and was looking at some of the neighborhoods where there's a lot of young families, or there were a lot of young families with young kids, which were like Sunnyview, Griswold, Starboard, Lafayette. It's those are some of the examples that Chuck gives us.
Mhm.
Those neighborhoods are currently in the village district now, not village center. Where are they village center?
I have to look, I think some are in,
Some are, right.
Yeah.
And I think, and the pattern in those neighborhoods is what, like a third of an acre? I
I
guess
have all
that would
that
be good,
data.
right, that would be good to know.
yeah,
Because I think that would help me feel more knowledgeable about like what is going from 1 acre to half acre look like or feel like, and perform like on a street, and what is going from 1 acre to a quarter acre.
I think they're in village center,
I think
because I only did that assessment
for a village
for
center.
village
yeah.
center.
But to me, I imagine them in village.
Yeah,
Because
It's a
they're
type of
more, right,
development,
they're
yeah.
neighborhoods, they're not mixed use, they don't have sidewalks.
But think about like Five Sisters neighborhood of Burlington, like some of the south end of Burlington, like those are small lots. How nice would it be to have a whole village district full of that? I mean, it'd be great. Those are small lots.
But I think of that as kind of like what our village center district is.
But what would be
Fifty
wrong with
square.
having that in the village district? How bad would that, why would that be bad?
there's a minimum, someplace, I think it was, I don't know if it was Richmond or Heinsberg. They had a minimum, they go down to like square footage, like 7,000 square feet per lot and 10,000 square feet per lot. And I was looking at the numbers about what you need for a minimum to have your own on-site septic. But even if it was 10,000 square feet, that's a quarter acre.
I guess I don't see why that, I don't see a way in which that's too dense for a village district. Personally, I don't. Because you're still talking about individual single-family houses.
I mean, hopefully not only, hopefully
Well,
it'll be a mix
sure,
of
but-
things, but yeah. Not that it's bad, but there are downstream effects of encouraging that much more development as you get further and further out, right? So you think about like sidewalks and like the town can't support that much more physical. I don't know, I'm sorry.
And now you're saying you don't want development in village districts.
Oh, I do. No, I do. I'm just saying like the greater the greater it is, the greater the demands on other services from the
What a
town.
wonderful problem to have.
That's, well,
I mean,
right.
for
I think
goodness
you're
sakes.
framing the question is a good one, like what would be bad? And
Yeah.
I'm not
And you
answering
think
you
about,
like, what would be bad? I'm answering you
think
about
about,
what.
like Bristol, right? Bristol has the sort of Richmond-like block. And then there's a pretty big area of pretty dense housing neighborhood. It's pretty big. Like, there's a lot of streets in there. Like, how great is that?
I would feel more comfortable going that direction if we had some sort of documentation, knowing from the people that live in those neighborhoods that they would be more comfortable with going to that level.
You are going down a very, very
Well,
tricky.
yeah,
I'm thinking short, middle, and long term.
you can't,
I mean, if you wanna stop development in this town, absolutely, let's give the NIMBY
Right.
argument lots of air.
right?
Yes, but there are a lot of things that we want to do, like we want to invest in community wastewater.
I mean, it goes back to Sabina's point, which is like, it's incumbent upon us to make an argument for how increasing our grand list benefits you and how we're close to, there are very few parts of town that are close to main road and infrastructure and have the potential
It
for
will.
future.
What's it worth?
It won't load for me. Yeah.
I'm
so-
reacting to no density and no minimum lot size in some of these other areas. That's what I am reacting to, because I think that
Yeah,
is.
me too.
That is a big step, and it's not that I don't agree with it, I'm just
Okay, so-
thinking about incremental steps, keeping the momentum, the direction that we're going in the right direction.
Okay, but maybe quarter acre and look in village district.
So,
Third of an acre.
That's
So-
increasing density by 4.
right.
Yes.
So could we do this? Could we ask Chris? And I don't know if you'll agree to this, Chris, to do some ground truthing of some, you mentioned this Bristol neighborhood, you mentioned the
South of Burlington.
Burlington Sisters neighborhood, Five Sisters. I think about the neighborhood in Essex where it's called like Pleasant Street. It's a really great neighborhood, like a little grid of streets, great houses, like to me, that's the scale that I imagine that is more dense than what we have now and more urban, for lack of a better word, than what we have now in our village district, but still seems compatible. And see like what some of those dimensions are. But I think we have agreement that 1 acre for the village district and also in my mind, the commercial district does seem
Mhm.
big, pretty big. And those districts are in the growth area. They are generally already developed. There's gonna be constraints like rivers and wetlands and NRL and stuff like that. How does that sound?
I think that I can do that, so what, I'll need you to give me those neighborhoods again. I know Five Sisters.
Five Sisters, he mentioned a neighborhood outside the village core of Bristol.
I don't know that it has a name, I just know driving around.
Yeah. Maybe you could find an address on Google Maps and
Sure,
send it to him.
sure.
That's where that's where that housing project is, right? Esther?
That's little cottage court there,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. I don't know that it's in there, but that's. the one.
Yeah.
So I think, but that's what Chris has been talking about though, so. One, if the lot sizes are reduced. Period, end story,
That's a much
First-
easier change to make too.
right? Versus lot sizes are reduced in exchange for affordable, small dwellings, cottage court, senior. Do you see the leverage to accomplish specific goals? To try and encourage the market to deliver or, potentially duplex?
I think you're not gonna get $1 million house on a 1/4 acre lot. I don't think that's gonna happen. And so I think that I would argue for not making someone, not having it as incentive, but just having it as a by right.
That was my question.
I think,
Do you guys, I don't agree with that? You disagree with that?
Say that again.
I think that,
What's the premise?
That to just reduce the lot sizes regardless, or reduce the lot sizes if you do X, Y, Z, kind of like PUD, but
No.
not,
I think
but
both-
not PUD, which
you
is
want
kind of
both
like
and.
number. And tell me more
I
about
think you
that.
want both, and I think when we need to be thinking more about how we can do incentives. And yes, I think we should across the board decrease lot size. But I also think if you're interested in building the kind of housing that we really want to promote and incentivize, then you should be able to do that in any district, to some degree. And so if you're gonna build a bunch of small units, or you're gonna commit to, all of the things that we've discussed, you should absolutely be able to do that beyond what our standard regs allow.
so you're saying not to do it as an incentive in the village district, but to allow it as an incentive in low density residential or rural ag or somewhere else.
Or in village, if all that if all that we're gonna get out of this negotiation is to cut lot size to a 1/2 an acre from an acre, then I want more. And if the way that you'll give me more is an incentive where, yeah, I'll give you more if you build the kind of housing that we really want, that will be more affordable to more people. Yeah, take that.
But I would argue for just going down to a 1/4 acre so that someone has the option of having a small lot and building a small house on a small lot. The small house is by definition gonna cost less than a big house. And if someone has, a 1/2 acre, they don't have to subdivide it, they can just keep the 1/2 acre.
What
And
makes
they
you
could
think that
incentivize
somebody
them
wouldn't
to-
build a big expensive house on a 1/4 acre? I'm just asking. If somebody like really wanted to live in Jericho and loved living really close to one of the village centers and had,
Well, maybe they would.
they didn't have,
I mean, that's
So
like Seattle
Right.
in a nutshell.
right, well, I was sort of,
Sure, but, okay, but we're not.
small
yeah,
lots are
I
not,
understand.
We're not-
Not, but,
small
you know,
lots are not guaranteed to deliver small houses.
Well,
They're more likely to
In-
deliver small
In
houses, but
this
they're not guaranteed.
part of, they are more likely to deliver smaller, less expensive houses.
Some of this makes me think of, Wayne Howe saying, we cut lot size to a quarter acre and we didn't see anything. Which again, I mean, part of that is because infill. Who's gonna wanna do infill? It's a small number of people, but it again makes me think why just making it a quarter acre isn't enough.
But you wouldn't, if you bought a quarter acre lot, or if you were thinking about building a house and you had a budget of $1 million and you saw a piece of land for sale in Jericho and all the other houses in the neighborhood were 400,000 or less, are you still gonna build $1 million house there?
That happens all over,
Okay,
everywhere,
and,
San Francisco, Brooklyn,
okay,
Cambridge.
but.
Take a
so
little
why-
house and knock it
that.
down and, exactly, so I was
So
just saying,
why,
that's why I was asking if, I don't know that lot size is the right reward. A smaller lot size, but whereas number 6 is really focusing on incentives. And number 3 is sort of like just an across the board, out of the gate, reducing the lot size. And I was just asking if we wanted to think about that as like an across the board approach or as an incentive based approach.
I think we could, what if we did both, like sort of what SJ was saying, but what if we set lot sizes down to a quarter acre, and if you are gonna do something affordable or workforce housing, we will do this for you, or we will, you will get this, you'll get something in addition. We need housing.
Does that sound workable to you?
I'm assuming we're just talking, well, what districts are we talking about?
I'm thinking village
District.
district,
Village.
really hard, yeah,
Yeah.
you gotta think about one district at a time, kind of.
Yeah.
can I just chime in at the map finally loaded?
Mhm.
And so in Sunny View, it looks like a random parcel is 0.49 acres, and in Lafayette, the two that I picked, one was a little under 0.3 and the other was a little over 0.3.
So about a third of an acre, and can you tell, are those village center or village?
Most of it is center.
Yeah, I think that's
It's
Jericho
like right on the
Corners.
border.
Okay, cause I think the way the town plan envisions is that the village centers develop to be denser than that.
It's Jericho Corners. Those two examples are Jericho.
Village center, Jericho.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so if you think about the pattern that's described in the land use chapter. The land use chapter describes the Jericho village centers as more dense than that. And the zoning currently supports that. And I would say the village district description in the future land use map is describing a pattern that is currently on the ground in those neighborhoods. So if those neighborhoods are a third of an acre, half of an acre, that to me is a good barometer for what the village district lot
Okay, so we
size
could go to a
potentially
third of
could
an
be.
acre.
Like,
Okay,
As a baseline.
Alright, looking at.
So annoying. I did
That's
this
the one.
analysis and wrote this up.
so look in those other neighborhoods too,
Right,
yeah.
that I've got
yeah.
two, it's
So-
Citizens, 5 Sisters in
Yeah.
Bristol.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's like a definitive decision. It's more like, okay, it
Yeah.
seems like make sense, consensus, due diligence, validate, and then tell us if that, if
Mhm.
you think that that would work. As a pattern, as an incremental change, and as a consistent with the town plan. Seem reasonable to me.
I agree.
And would you, so what about the commercial district?
Well, before that,
Oh, go ahead.
what would you make the minimum lot size for in the village district for a PUD?
Well,
None.
yeah, 0 or just. Well, that's the only way we control density right now, so I guess, yeah, 0.
Well,
Yeah,
Your
Forgetting
density-
about density for a second.
your density is still calculated based on your minimum lot size. The PUD just lets you change the minimum lot size, your density doesn't change.
Right. Your density only changes if you earn a bonus.
But couldn't that be one of the bonuses you earn in the PUD,
But,
more density?
Yeah, that's what it is now.
Right,
it's how it's set up.
so to answer your question about the difference, so moving into the village district, which would be Pinehurst in this case, that's 0.8. And they all look like they're about like that. So less than 1.
Less than 1, so. That's, makes sense then also. Cause Pinehurst probably was not, I don't know if it was a PUD, maybe that's when, I don't know, you never know, when was it built and what were the regulations at the time and.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any concerns about. Like. Bumping up the density in the village district, I don't wanna. Have like no density caps, I think we just need to be sensitive to that.
sure,
Yeah,
sure.
Would you take that same approach for commercial?
Well, I think that should be, I would treat that as a village center. In terms of density. Would be my. I would support a bunch of density. I mean, it's. We did all this work before, and we went down there, it's sort of tucked down, it's. I think it could be pretty dense in there and be fine.
I'm trying to remember what we had recommended when we had gone through that master planning process for minimum lot sizes there. Wasn't nothing.
Yeah,
I think it might have been a 1/4 acre. I don't remember. I could try to dig it up. To me, commercial is more like village and village center. Currently,
well, currently, it's.
Right.
Currently, it's like no man's land.
Right.
I mean,
and since it's a transition area in the future land use map, like having this kind of, once again, a big jump to nothing doesn't make sense to me. So I would probably categorize it similar to village personally.
I don't think we collectively. Have any sense of what the commercial district is. To be honest, I think I think the name is misnamed,
Yeah,
so that alone suggests that nobody really knows, because we call it the commercial district because that's what it's currently called, but that's not how we're thinking of it. Mostly we think of it for housing.
I think of it similar as the commercial district master plan describes it, which is housing and mixed use. Not solely housing, but I think the
Housing and
market,
mixed use is a village center.
well, that's true.
I mean, I think that's what it is.
So the village residential
commercial district in Richmond, which is described. So this is not the high density residential district. This is village residential commercial. Described as modest density. Multifamily up to 4 is permitted, conditional 5+ mixed use. So their minimum lot area is 0.22 acres.
Where is that in Richmond?
I have no idea.
Oh,
It would be easy enough to find out.
yeah.
I just think this is interesting. Their max residential density equals 1 unit per 5,000 square feet. They can have 2 principal structures per lot. So
I am concerned about making such. I mean, I have to look, see how big I think these changes really are, without doing more robust engagement with people.
Which changes are you thinking of?
Like making the commercial district like a village center with,
No minimum lot size,
Yeah,
then no density caps.
yeah, I mean. That's a really big change, and there are lots of. People living there without public engagement. I would be concerned about going there. And then going to a public hearing and then having people show up then. That's my concern.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, not that I don't philosophically agree with getting density in some of these areas, but just from a process standpoint. It warrants a more fuller discussion.
I think that makes sense. And I think you're right, like there is a tipping point from the marching orders that we got when we made the town plan. And what necessitates going back and starting another discussion. I think that that's true. And I feel like we have, well, you all, the work that you've done before I was here, have a good track record of doing that community buy-in ahead of time and making these amendments really not contentious, really doing that work. I think that's important. But I do also want to say that we do have very clear marching orders, that this is something that we need to address, and this is something that we need to push. And so I agree, there is a line there, and I don't think that just want to validate because we're coming on strong.
Yeah.
That's true, and I feel that responsibility too.
Yes, I agree. And I also think that the commercial district is just a whole separate project.
Yeah.
We did it before, didn't work out, and it's just been sitting there as a plus, like, no one knows what it is, no one knows what it wants to be. I think that's a whole separate project that we would need to just dig back, we need to do it again.
Mhm.
But in my mind, residential mixed use, that's a village center, so I think that density would be appropriate there, but it's a whole nother project.
I mean, like right now. The dimensional requirements in commercial and village. They're not the same. I mean, they're a little different. It's interesting. It's. Like the village is more dense than the commercial in some ways, right? But I think that just conceptually treating them similarly makes sense to me. Because they are kind of similar.
They're similar now. So,
Minimum lots is, lot size is 1 acre, 1 acre. Road frontage is 120 and 150. Front yard is 25, and then 50 on 15 and 30 in other places. It's almost, it's, the commercial is more of a suburban, it's more spaced out than the village.
It is.
Which interesting.
Because it's pedigree is as open space separating two village districts. And that's sort of the evolution that the commercial district master plan tried to leave that behind and acknowledge that it had great development potential. It's a great location. It's good land. It's already developed. It is no longer open space between two village centers. So stop clinging to this, it sort of was trying to implement that Vermont, compact settlement separated by rural countryside, because originally it's great ag soil and was much more agriculture than it is now. But it's never made that leap.
And there
That's
was a
why-
period when people thought it would be
Village, right.
like manufacturing or, sort of.
Or stores.
Bigger.
But in addition, when Taps Corners was getting built, people liked the idea of like big box stores and big parking lots. In the 70s, that was a vision for that area too. So that's why those dimensional standards are a little bit different.
Yeah,
So if we're talking about potentially reducing lot sizes, because the future land use map in the town plan does include the commercial district, but the future land use map for the regional planning commission kind of has it in transition. Do you think we should consider its lot sizes now or not consider its lot sizes now as part of this number 3? Because it's not mentioned in number 3, but it just says especially in, it doesn't say only in.
yeah,
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get it.
in like my planning world, I would leave it as it is until we can do a more in-depth study. I'm telling you, in my planning world.
So much study saying, yes.
And that may be the case. I mean, I've been here a year and I don't have all the history, so.
What have you been doing?
Apparently nothing.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
All right, let's put the commercial district aside for a second. So then, number 6, Chris, it sounds like you still expect small lot sizes to be associated with the PUD review
structure, yes.
structure.
Yeah.
For everything, for those more rural areas.
Yes, but I mean, I'll say like, though, when we've looked at I have a thought and I'm gonna try and articulate it. Like, I just know this is what I'm gonna hear from other people. Like, one of the reasons people go through a PUD is they get the smaller lot sizes. So if we do the smaller lot sizes, they're never gonna have even smaller lot sizes for a PUD, which we already know people are not using them anyway. They're not going down to the smallest lot sizes as it is. But we didn't really see any PUDs in the village area, like the smallest project we saw, the most dense zone I think we saw was low density residential, and that maybe 0.6 acres.
But
I
imagine that,
think separating, like the PUD serves the benefit that the town gets from a PUD is open space
Yeah.
or public space of some sort. And that is great. There needs to be a different incentive structure tied to the benefit to the town is the kind of housing we're talking about. And so, and that needs to be separate from the open space PUD structure.
I see the logic in that, yeah.
and if you had if you owned an acre in the village district and wanted to, and all of a sudden the minimum lot size was a quarter acre, you could sell 3 lots without doing the PUD.
Say that again.
If you owned 1 acre in the village district today, that's it, you have your lot, your building lot. If the density went down to a quarter acre lot size, you could, in theory, sell 3 lots.
Yeah, up to 3 lots before going through. PUD.
Without doing the PUD, because it's a quarter acre zoning.
I don't know if I have to talk to Chris. I don't know if it's 3 or 2.
Well, but my point is that you could,
There would be some revenue
Yes.
that you could generate or.
and buildable
Unlock,
lots
yeah.
that you could generate without having, because you're not a developer doing a new project, you're somebody who's got an acre and a half.
So then what the PUD becomes is really more of a planning tool and not so much a lot size density tool. It's how you're organizing the development. You can still get a density bonus.
Yeah, you could still get a density bonus. I don't see why you couldn't also still
You
get.
still could,
Yeah.
yeah. But you're taking away you're just allowing the smaller lots otherwise, anyway. And it's really comes about when you're doing more than 4 lots. You need to go through a process where there's a review to make sure that those lots are being placed in a way that's consistent with the goals of the town. Does that make sense? I think this has actually been a really good conversation.
Yes.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So for
If we change lot sizes, I feel like
Has to change anyway.
that's gonna fall in line with that.
what is that?
Will there be
changes?
That frontages, those are specifically about frontage requirements, that those are gonna get smaller because the lot size, the minimum lot size would get small.
What was the more staff research needed?
Why did I put that there?
I think because it depended a little bit on how number 3 shook out.
Yes. That's what it was.
So.
Because
we
part of
could
the
decide
answer-
on it, Right,
Part of the answer for 4 was, well, it's associated with 3. But then if we didn't go with 3, then I need to look into it more. But if we're just reducing lot size, if that's the direction we want to go, then the frontage just needs to be appropriate for the lot size.
so when you say if that's the direction we wanna go. They're not mutually exclusive though, are they? Like, we could say the PUD shows that the market will bear and the market demand is there for smaller lots. And we have these neighborhood patterns that show us that the existing historical pattern in Jericho is smaller lots. Therefore, and our town plan tells us to look at smaller lots, the affordable housing will tell us to look at smaller lots. Looking at smaller lots seems like a very logical, demonstrable path. Right? Based on this discussion, okay. Separately, is there still in your mind then an option to also if that's sort of not a foregone conclusion, but kind of, also separating density from lot size? Or is that unnecessary if you've done that?
I think it's unnecessary and although I really, there's great appeal in separating density from lot size because it lets us get to some smaller lots out in the other zones.
Yeah, that's where I'm going.
But how that is tracked can get really messy. And so, like when I've talked to the planner in Heinsberg, they're like, oh, we just do this, you know, and this is how we track it. But then when I talk to other people, and this came up in our meeting with the Natural Resource Overlay Group, because there are staff from CCRPC there, they're like, after 10, it just gets really hard to track that over time.
Well, and this
And
is,
that part of the more, so that was gonna be more of a discussion is how would we even track this if this is how we went?
What does that mean over time? What do you mean?
Well, the way they do it in Heinsberg is, because the density doesn't change. When you subdivide a property, you assign density to a lot at that time. And then over time, it just gets complicated. And after you do so many, it becomes a PUD.
Yeah, right.
And then you need to set aside open space and then like how
Right.
it just gets complicated. So going to just reducing lot size and maintaining our density associated with lot size is just much easier. It doesn't give us as much, it doesn't give us flexibility in dealing with the rural ag and forestry zones, but you can still do smaller lot size in those areas if you go through a PUD.
or some other incentive, some other density incentive or small lot size. That is yet to be determined. Again, like,
Well, the open space benefit of the PUD is in fact the most valuable benefit in that area. So does not mean you can have your cake and eat it too. You can get a density bonus, you can have a very small lot, and the public benefit is that it's open space and it's appropriate for that district.
So the gentleman came that one time and said, oh, I can't even give my kids a
Immediately.
corner, right? Like, so how does his situation fit into this conversation, right? Are we,
He would be able to do what he wants to do if he went through a PUD.
so now a section of his parcel has to be open space.
well, wouldn't the original lot be the open space or no?
He would have to set aside, he would have to designate 50% of his land as open space. It wouldn't have to be in a land trust. It could be a working farm. It could be working lands. It could be timbered. It would just need to be set aside as not developed. Other planners that I,
Oh, because let's say. Because it keeps him from giving land to his daughter. Let's say he doesn't want to be locked in to preserving 50% of his land as open space. I mean,
Maybe he wants to
that's a big
subdivide.
ask. I mean, it prevents him from any other possibility, and just so he could give his daughter, like, so she could build a little tiny house. I mean, that seems like a big,
Potentially it does encourage like more of a sprawl pattern because to maintain all his, let's say he had 100 acres, I don't know how much he has, to not do a PUD, the issue was then he has to, every lot has to be 10 acres. And so his daughter would have to get 10 acres and he only wants to give her 1 acre. And yes, it's a good benefit to set aside the open space, but if the behavioral response to that is, okay, then I won't do a PUD. I won't give my family member 1 acre. I'll carve my lot up into 10 acres. That's not a great outcome either.
No.
So neither of those, that we would want to think through that a little bit more, like. Because open space is a great benefit. I mean, on the other hand, he doesn't have to just produce one PUD lot, he could still produce 9 PUD lots that are all small. So it hasn't totally changed his subdivision options. Still has 50 in this scenario. I don't know this person's specifics, but we shouldn't really talk about specific. Shouldn't really talk about specific cases anyway. The 50 acres is still available for subdivision, and with the density bonus, it's still available.
Right, it's just a really complicated process, whereas if you like, here's Sue, why don't you just build a house right there? I'll give you the
Right.
land. I mean, that's what he wants, right? I mean,
Yeah, it's not that I mean, it's more complicated, but it's not a really complicated process. I don't think that.
Other planners that I've talked to have said that going through having the PUD process to get the land set aside is most important to do in those rural districts. Like that's where you want to do that. We always feel like it's gonna be a short meeting.
I know.
I promised myself that I was not gonna talk.
That's what you're paid to run a polluted group.
Well, I mean, to, do my usual interrupting and then talking way too much, saying the same thing over and over again.
Okay, is everybody okay to just continue to wrap up, or do we have to stop? We have another 10 minutes in you?
Oh, to continue on this line.
Well, just to finish our meeting,
Oh.
yeah. No, not 10 minutes on this slide.
So we're gonna go to the next slide.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, we're gonna go to the next slide. Okay. So I don't wanna convene the density dimensions working group until I have a little more to work with.
Can I just say out loud a process question that we don't have to answer here? Members of the Affordable Housing Committee would love to participate in that work group in some way. And I don't know how to do that with open meeting law because 3 of us is a quorum. And so I just wanna say that there is interest in that group and their expertise and their efforts in this work to participate, contribute, whatever. And I don't know procedurally how to do that and follow open meeting law. So we don't have to discuss it now. I'm just saying it.
That came up at our meeting last week.
Well, if we wanna do that, we'll just have to advertise the meeting and have.
Warn it as a.
Warn it at the Affordable Housing Committee meeting, or just have one of them come.
Yeah, we can talk offline.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying out loud.
Right. Okay, but this discussion gave you a lot of food for thought, right?
Yes.
So now you're off and running.
Right, so the answer to.
Yeah.
The answer to this question is yes, there are substantive concerns moving forward in this direction. So that's good to know. That's why I wanted to have the discussion before going down that path. Okay. Zoning district working group. So I know Sabina and Wendy have been looking at that. They've been looking at some regulations in other towns to see how they compare to ours, and so we're gonna get together and talk about that before we share something with the planning commission. And then I've already given an update on the natural resource overlay working group, so that's where we're going. We may want to set up a 4th working group because I think there are gonna be some there's some little amendments, and maybe you don't need a working group for this, but Chris Flynn pointed out that when we did the setback, the maximum setbacks, we just said structure And that will include like sheds and garages and things like that. So there might be some things we need to go in and clean that up. So I could just share that with you at a meeting probably. Great, no public.
Well, we do have public now,
Oh, Tom.
so, and Jim.
Any public comment at 9:06? Not to discourage
I
you,
have
but
to- Yeah, I don't know if you can you guys raise your, can you raise your hands? If you have a comment?
Tom,
Hold on, I gotta.
I'm gonna unmute you.
Unmute.
Free to talk now?
Yeah.
This has been informative, but at the same time confusing because I am not sure how these changes, Chris and some of you others are mentioning the importance of incremental change. And what I don't hear in tonight's discussion is how the actual topography and soil characteristics and other physical constraints on individual parcels come into play when you're making decisions about what's allowable without looking at things on a parcel by parcel basis. It seems like we're relying an awful lot on state statutes that may or may not be reliable guidelines for establishing a resilient community in the future. So I think I agree with Chris. It's important to do these changes incrementally, but with an eye toward what actually is going on in individual parcels, in particularly in the forestry and rural residential areas. That's all I want to say right now. We're going to meet tomorrow as a working group and maybe flesh out some of the things I've been listening to tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone else?
No other hands.
Okay.
Great.
We'll go on to the planner's report.
Okay, I'll make these quick. So for this advancing community wastewater report, so we shared it with Lynette Auden of the state, and she really likes it, and she has some really good feedback. And so we're gonna make some changes, and she may even, post it on the state's website as a resource.
Am I missing something?
Yeah, that's the report that our interns produced with Chris.
Sorry, yeah,
No,
the
no.
public engagement strategy. Yeah, so that would be great for Jericho. If we could get that done. I went to a
Picture.
no, and wherever it is listed in on the back of the front page or anything like that. Yeah. I'm on my don't forget. Oh, here we go. So last week I went to a reimagining world capacity summit down in Randolph, which was fun because they set it up like a reality TV show. So that was a lot of fun. The focus was on how, no, how about which part? Well,
Like a reality. show?
I think it was funny that they set it up as a reality TV show, and it was kind of fun.
Okay, great.
They did really do that. That's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, so like at one point we were playing Family Feud, and then at another point we were doing it was very Vermont. It was nice, right? But the focus was on how small towns can maximize capacity, share resources, and what the state can do to provide us information and make it easier for us to participate in programs. So that was really great. One of the groups I was in, and it's the picture in the middle, we were trying to figure out how to engage more volunteers and build leadership capacity. So we made it like a menu, so with like different, like the appetizers were for like getting youth involved, and the desserts were like having the people who've been doing it for a long time being mentors, just silly thing. And then, if you remember all the work we did with CCRPC on updating the future land use, the regional future land use plans specifically for Jericho. So CCRPC is one of the first 3 regional planning commissions that are going to the land use review board to have their work reviewed. That's December 1st. They are hoping to get letters of support or endorsements from municipalities that they've worked with. So I was planning on writing a letter like from the town planner, but then I thought, well, maybe it can come from the planning commission. So if the planning commission agrees that it was a good process that we went through with them, I can work with Susan on writing that letter, and we can submit it on behalf of the planning commission. Sure.
Sounds good to me.
Okay,
Good with that, okay.
that's a formal yes.
Yes.
Okay.
You're gonna create a blurb.
Ooh, the beat up. That's exactly what it's gonna be.
Never heard.
Right, 11 headlines.
All right.
All right, other updates.
I just want to confirm and remind that you will have a table at the town meeting draft budget review, January. So
I will be out of town.
But I think that's the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
so we'll organize
saying,
our-
of course, reminding and
Resources
inland,
for
yes.
January meeting.
there's going to be a table, you need to fill it.
Got them.
Thank you, SJ, for getting us a table.
Conservation Commission, this Thursday, where the select board is going to decide on approving or not, $20,000 from the Conservation Reserve Fund to help, purchase the easement to conserve the Rawson Farm. The Jericho portion, so that's exciting.
That's on Silly Hill Road,
It's on the hat,
right?
yes.
And it as a farm, staying working as a farm.
Conserved as a farm.
Anything else?
No, I have it's not a committee liaison thing, but I just want to ask if the town was thinking about using chip money on other projects, who would be initiating that process? Because it wouldn't be the wastewater committee, because that's the wastewater task force is specifically for
Right,
Riverside.
right.
So that's
Okay.
And the new website is live.
New website's live, yay Sabina, heroic effort, awesome.
we had a wastewater task force meeting on the 10th. I don't know if there's anything. I added a new.
Oh, yeah,
Sure.
yes, what do we do?
Heard from the RCAP guy.
What's RCAP?
RCAP
Oh, yeah.
is a consulting company that is funded by federal funds, and they provide technical assistance mostly to small towns on
Yes.
projects mostly related to infrastructure, especially related to wastewater. And their services are free. But they're not like a big Du Bois and King kind of consultant, but they would be more of a spot check consultant, or more like a consultant to our consultant.
You guys have manpower.
Yeah,
They
like-
can do everything that Du Bois and King
Right,
can
but they're
do.
like 3 guys, but like
Right.
Kate McCarthy can call them, or
Right,
Chris can call them, and they have engineering expertise, funding expertise, ordinance expertise. So we learned a lot about that.
It's really striking how many resources there are for this project. I mean, when you think about it, there's a lot of resources available for this. It seems like every month there's a new resource. It's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
We also talked about CHIP, and an outcome of the wastewater task force was that Eric and Peter, the two select board members, sort of all came to the conclusion that it would be a good idea for the select board to have an educational session on CHIP, somewhat separate from the wastewater task force, but
Can we see for the minutes, like, can you spell out what CHIP is?
CHIP is the,
Community Housing Infrastructure Program.
yeah.
yes.
So they were gonna follow up, and I think Kate was gonna figure out who was the right resource to give the overview to the select board, and that was probably gonna happen in December, kind of to your point, to start feeding the thoughts.
Well, I think it was
Maybe.
gonna happen after the big budget push.
Oh,
January.
Oh, maybe in January.
yeah. And the wastewater task force, we're working on our page on the website to get more information because
Hey, wastewater task force, you guys want a table? Yes, the answer is yes, you do want a table. Yes, I'm just answering it for you. Have a
We
table.
probably should.
We probably
should,
should,
yeah.
yes.
But we'll have handouts by then.
Yeah, we'll have handouts by then, but the survey is going to the Riverside residents soon, like within the next 2 weeks or so. And the diggers are gonna be digging at the Browns River Middle School site during Thanksgiving week. So Eric Johnson's gonna do a front porch forum post prior to that. Like, hey, we're still working on this project, you're gonna see some diggers, they're just testing, nothing's been decided. So that's the update, I think, for the wastewater task force. Cool. Okay. Any other business? So our next meeting is December 2nd, and
Yep.
we'll be continuing along. Is it, everybody gonna be here? Wants to be here, SJ, sounds like?
Well, maybe, give me a minute. It might be one of those situations where if you need a quorum, you need to text me.
Okay, so for now, we'll assume you're not gonna be there though.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably try to make it, but
We'll
I'll
be
be in
making, we'll be
California.
making all the panel decisions on the dimensions discussion.
Yeah.
No pressure. I mean, you can skip it, okay.
I love you so much. You know right where to get me. I will definitely be calling from California.
California is fun. Okay, motion to adjourn.
I move.
SJ, thank you, in a second.
You can have it.
Sabina,
Sabina.
all those in favor of adjourn, please say yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everyone.